It was a Friday night like any other in Norfolk, Virginia. The air was crisp, the streets quiet, but inside the Hunters Square apartments on Gough Street, something unimaginable was about to unfold. A desperate argument, raised voices, the sound of a struggle, and then gunshots. By the time neighbors peered outside, it was already too late. Two women lay motionless, blood pooling around them, the scent of gunpowder still heavy in the air. Panic spread. Someone screamed for help. Someone else dialed 911. But in the crucial minutes that followed, the one who pulled the trigger was already gone. The question is who could do something so cold, and more importantly, why? To understand this crime, we need to go back to the two lives that were stolen that night. The first victim, Alicia Hereford, 52 years old, a mother, a caregiver, a woman whose entire life was dedicated to protecting and providing for her children. The second, Morgan Bazemore, just 23 years old, a young woman on the verge of something greater. Morgan was ambitious, full of life, with dreams she was eager to chase. Mother and daughter, a bond unbreakable. But on this night, they were not just family. They were targets who wanted them dead. Morgan, by all accounts, had no known enemies. But what about Alicia? Could this have been some random act of violence? That theory wouldn't hold up for long, because soon a name would surface, one far too close to the victims. And when the truth came out, it would shake the entire community. Police didn't have to search long. Multiple witnesses had seen it all: the argument, the gunshots, the man who stormed off into the night. He wasn't a stranger. He wasn't some masked intruder. His name was Kenyatta Jones, a man with a history, a man with ties to Morgan. Jones was not just some random killer. He was Morgan's on-again, off-again boyfriend. A relationship riddled with conflict, tension, and red flags. So, was this an act of jealousy? A crime of passion? Or was there something even darker at play? Jones had vanished into the night, but not for long, because soon police would track him down, and the secrets he left behind, they were about to change everything. This wasn't a case of a random attack. Kenyatta Jones and Morgan Bazemore had history, but not the kind that ended in love stories. Their relationship was on again, off again, the kind that friends whispered about, the kind that left Morgan torn between love and fear. There were red flags, big ones, arguments, jealousy, possessiveness. One friend later admitted, "We saw the signs. We just didn't think it would come to this." But here's the chilling part. Morgan had tried to move on. And sometimes leaving a toxic relationship is the most dangerous thing a person can do. So, was this a crime of passion? Did Jones snap in a moment of rage? Or was this something much more sinister, something premeditated? As the details of that night began to surface, one thing was clear: Jones wasn't running, because he thought he had already won. Norfolk police wasted no time. Witnesses gave a name. The evidence pointed in one direction. And just hours after the murders, authorities issued a warrant for Kenyatta Jones' arrests. So, where was he? Would he run? Disappear into the shadows like so many killers before him? Shockingly, no. Days later, police found him hiding in plain sight. Jones was arrested without a struggle. No resistance, no chase. Almost as if he wasn't worried. Almost as if he believed he'd get away with it. But why? Did he think there wasn't enough evidence? Or did he know something that no one else did? That answer would come soon enough. Because when investigators started digging, they stumbled onto something huge. And suddenly this case became way bigger than anyone expected. Inside a car linked to the victims, police found something no one could explain. $250,000 in cash. Yes, $250,000 just sitting there. Immediately, the questions started flying. Where did it come from? Was it Morgan's, Alicia's, someone else's? And most importantly, was this money connected to the murders? Because now this case wasn't just about a deadly love story. It was about money, a lot of it. And when that much money is involved, people kill for it. So, was this truly a crime of passion? Or was there another layer to this story, one no one saw coming? Investigators needed answers because now they weren't just hunting for a killer, they were hunting for the truth. When detectives uncovered $250,000 inside a car linked to the victims, the investigation took a sharp turn. This wasn't drug money, at least not that anyone could prove. It wasn't lottery winnings or a bank withdrawal from either Alicia or Morgan. So, where did it come from? The city of Norfolk quickly got involved, seeking judicial guidance on what to do with the cash. Who did it belong to? Who had a legal claim over it? Here's the biggest mystery. Alicia and Morgan had no known financial dealings that could explain this kind of money. No suspicious transactions, no sudden deposits. So, was this just a strange coincidence? Or was this money the real reason Alicia and Morgan were killed? Was it possible that Kenyatta Jones knew about it? If so, then maybe this wasn't just a crime of passion. Maybe this was something bigger, something planned. But if that were the case, where was the proof? The only person who knew the full truth, Kenyatta Jones, and he wasn't talking. With Jones behind bars, prosecutors wasted no time preparing their case. The charges, 2 counts of second-degree murder. The evidence, witness testimony. Security camera capturing parts of the altercation. A gun recovered near the scene. It seemed solid. Everything was in place for a strong trial. The victims' families braced themselves, hoping justice would be swift. But then everything changed, because before a jury could hear the case, before witnesses could take the stand, a deal was made. And that deal, it changed everything. No trial, no second-degree murder conviction. Instead, Kenyatta Jones took a plea deal, but not for murder, not for first-degree charges, not even for second-degree charges. Instead, he pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter. Let's put that into perspective. This man killed 2 people, a mother, a daughter, and yet he walked away with a much lighter sentence. But why? Because the prosecution had a major problem, a lack of cooperating witnesses. Without key testimonies, their case fell apart. And just like that, Kenyatta Jones had won. Or had he? 8 years. That was the price Kenyatta Jones would pay for taking 2 lives. Not life in prison, not 20 or 30 years, just 8. Because of the plea deal, the judge handed down a reduced sentence, 8 years behind bars with an additional 12 years suspended under strict conditions. Let's put that into perspective. Alicia Hereford spent 52 years building a life. Morgan Bazemore had 23 years of dreams ahead of her. And yet, Kenyatta Jones would serve less time than some people do for robbery. For the victims' families, this wasn't justice. It was a gut punch. A devastating reminder that the legal system doesn't always deliver the closure families desperately seek. The question now was why? Heartbreak, anger, disbelief. When the sentence was announced, Alicia and Morgan's family sat in shock. How do you kill 2 people and only serve 8 years? That question hung in the air, and there was no good answer. For them, this wasn't justice. It was a betrayal. A mother and daughter were gone forever, and the man responsible had be walking free in less than a decade. One family member later said, We put our trust in the system, and the system failed us. And maybe, just maybe, they were right. Because what happened here wasn't just about the crime. It was about what went wrong in the case itself. And to understand that, we have to look at the biggest issue of all, the witnesses. So how did this happen? How did Kenyatta Jones manage to avoid a murder conviction? The answer: witnesses, or rather the lack of them. Multiple key witnesses refused to testify. Some were there that night. They saw what happened. So why didn't they speak up? Was it fear? Fear of retaliation? Fear of being labeled a snitch? Or was it something else? Whatever the reason, their silence changed the outcome. Without those testimonies, prosecutors had no choice but to offer a plea deal. Because here's the brutal truth. Even with solid evidence, a case can fall apart if people refuse to testify. And in this case, that silence gave Kenyatta Jones his way out. So the real question is, was he the only one responsible for this injustice? Or was it the system itself that let the victims down? The truth was right there, captured on camera. A dashcam sitting inside a witness vehicle had recorded the shooting in real time. The argument, the gunfire, the moment Morgan and Alicia fell. It should have been the key piece of evidence that sealed Kenyatta Jones' fate. But it wasn't. Why? Because in a cruel twist, the court ruled the footage inadmissible. Without live testimony to back it up, the video alone wasn't enough. A legal loophole, a technicality, one that changed the entire outcome of the case. It's a flaw in the system, a flaw that let a double murderer walk away with just 8 years. But what if things had been different? What if Virginia had better protections for witnesses? Would someone have stepped forward? Would this case have ended differently? That's the question prosecutors were now asking themselves. And it's why they made a bold demand in the aftermath of this case. In the wake of the devastating plea deal, prosecutors issued a clear message. Virginia needs a real witness protection program. Because here's the problem: witnesses are afraid. Afraid to testify. Afraid of retaliation. Afraid that speaking out could put them in danger. And when witnesses stay silent, killers walk free. This wasn't the first case to fall apart because witnesses refused to testify. And if something didn't change, it wouldn't be the last. So prosecutors pushed for reform. For a system that could protect witnesses the way federal witness protection does. Because in cases like this, silence isn't just a personal decision. It's the difference between justice and failure. And in Morgan and Alicia's case, that silence had already done its damage. But there was one more mystery left unsolved. One that no courtroom decision could answer. Long after Kenyatta Jones was sentenced, long after the trial had ended, one question still remained. Where did the money come from? $250,000, a small fortune found in a car linked to the victims. But here's the thing. Neither Morgan nor Alicia had any known connection to that kind of cash. So, whose money was it? Was it Morgan's? Unlikely. She was 23, still building her life. Was it Alicia's? Possible. But again, there was no record of her ever handling that kind of money. Or was it someone else's? And if so, could that money have played a role in their deaths? To this day, no one has publicly claimed it. No family members, no associates, nothing. And that's what makes this case so unsettling. Because when that much money is left unclaimed, it usually means one thing. There's more to this story than we'll ever know. This case wasn't just about a double murder. It was about how justice works, or rather, how it sometimes doesn't. It was about how a plea deal, fearful witnesses, and legal loopholes turned what should have been a strong murder conviction into a mere manslaughter charge. It was about a system that allowed a man to kill two women and serve just 8 years. And what about the $250,000? That mystery alone raises even bigger questions. Could that money have been the real reason Morgan and Alicia were killed? Or was it just an unsettling coincidence? We may never know. But what we do know is this. Sometimes families walk away from the justice system feeling like justice never happened at all. And that's the real tragedy here. Because no matter what the court decided, Alicia and Morgan's story deserved better. Let's take a step back. A mother and daughter brutally murdered. $250,000 found nearby completely unexplained. And the man responsible, I'll be walking free in less than a decade. That's not life in prison. That's not even 20 years. That's less time than some people serve for white-collar crimes. So let me ask you, is that justice? Because to many, it doesn't feel like it. The victims' families didn't feel like it. The people of Norfolk didn't feel like it. But here's the harsh truth. This isn't an isolated case. Cases like this happen all the time, where the legal system fails the victims, where killers get deals they don't deserve, where families are left wondering, did the courts even care? And that brings us to the biggest question of all. If Kenyatta Jones had gone to trial, would he have been convicted of murder? Would he be serving life instead of just 8 years? Would a jury have seen the truth without the technicalities, the plea deals, the legal shortcuts? Or would the missing witnesses, the blocked dashcam footage, and the fear of retaliation still have led to the same outcome? Because this isn't just about one case. This is about a system that allows cases like this to slip through the cracks. A system where plea deals outweigh the truth. Witnesses are too scared to testify. Legal loopholes let crucial evidence get thrown out. And in the end, killers walk away with a slap on the wrist. So I ask you again, was justice really served? Or was this case just another reminder of how broken the system truly is? Even after the case was closed, the questions never stopped. Because for every answer, there seemed to be something missing. Like the witnesses, why didn't they testify? Was it fear of retaliation? Or did they know something more than they were willing to admit? Then there's the $250,000, the most bizarre piece of this case. Where did it come from? Drug money? A secret deal? Something else entirely? And most importantly, was it connected to the murders? If Jones knew about the money, did he kill for it? Or was it just a coincidence, an eerie, unexplained detail that had nothing to do with the crime? And here's the scariest question of all. Could Kenyatta Jones have gotten away with even less time? If the plea deal hadn't been accepted, would he have walked completely free? Because let's not forget, without cooperating witnesses, this case was already falling apart. So, did prosecutors cut their losses by taking the plea deal? Or did they let a killer off easy because they had no other choice? And that leads us to the final, most important question. Now, I turn this over to you. Do you think justice was served? Was an 8-year sentence fair? Or did Morgan and Alicia deserve more? And what about the $250,000 mystery? Will we ever know where it came from? Or is this one of those cases that will never have all the answers? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Because sometimes justice isn't just about the courts. It's about keeping the conversation alive.